Hey folks, welcome back to the Eerie Experience. Tonight you're about to witness some of the most scariest videos existing on the internet. In this video, we are bringing you horrifying, disturbing, and most important of all, true stories of Halloween. Now, for many, Halloween is a time for costumes and candy, but people forget that something sinister is always lurking in the shadows, waiting and watching from the darkness. These tales will make you think twice before stepping outside of your house on this day. So stick with us as we dive deep into spine-chilling moments experienced by 4 unfortunate souls. But before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss what's going to come next. Number 1. This terrifying tale was told by an anonymous user on Reddit. The story is enough to give anyone chills. It all started on Halloween night. The user explained how his family was out trick-or-treating, and he was left alone in the house. Before leaving, his parents had told him to answer the door and hand out candies. That night, there was silence everywhere. Too much eerie silence, something that rubbed him the wrong way. Their house sat at the end of a dead-end street, and every time the doorbell rang, it startled him. He sat across from the TV, watching it with no sound at all. All of a sudden, the doorbell rang. He walked over to the door and opened it. In front of him stood a tall man in a scream mask, standing silently on the porch. The man in front of him didn't speak a word. He didn't even say trick or treat, and just stood there watching. Then he held out a pillowcase. Trying to shake off the strange feeling, the user dropped some candies into the pillowcase and started to close the door. But the man still stood out there for a few seconds. Then slowly, he turned towards the darkness and left without saying thank you. The anonymous user then walked back to his living room and started to watch the show again. Everything was going normal, that is, until a thud came from downstairs. He immediately froze and started to look around, but there was nothing. He muted the TV and listened. He walked towards the stairway, and that's when he saw it. The back door was open, swinging, almost as if someone had just walked inside the house. Then there was another crack. As he passed the couch that blocked the view of the den stairway from the living room, he saw something on the stairway. It was a scream mask leering up from the stairs at him. The sight made him scream. He ran upstairs and called his mom to tell her what happened. Fearing for her son's safety, the mother ran home. Once the family came, they checked each and every corner of the house, but there was nothing, as if no one had entered the house in the first place. To this day, nobody knows what drove the unknown stranger to enter the house, whether it was curiosity or something far more darker. Number 2. This next story is just as haunting as the last one. In this one, a group of friends decided to explore an abandoned house on Halloween night, a mistake they would end up regretting later on. That night, as the friend drove to the place that everyone talked about but nobody dared to enter, the atmosphere was terrifying. When they arrived at the house, they noticed that there were no streetlights anywhere. The only light came from their flashlights, the darkness creeping everywhere around them. As they walked up to the porch, one of the guys noticed a freshly carved pumpkin lying, something that was completely out of place. He thought maybe the house wasn't as abandoned as they thought it was, but his friends didn't pay any attention to him. After walking around the house and looking inside, they decided to leave the place. But just as they started to walk down the porch, a noise was heard from the side of the house. The friend flashed his light towards the noise, and what he saw left him shocked. It was a lone man standing in the shadows, staring at them. What made the situation even more terrifying was that the unknown man held a large knife in his hand. Immediately, the group of friends ran to their car, but they could still hear the man running behind them, trying to reach them before they left with their lives. They sped away, and then 2 of the friends started laughing, saying it was all part of a setup. They explained that a kid from their school had been asked to scare the group, but not all of them were convinced. They'd seen the man's face, the darkness in his eyes, and they knew it wasn't a high schooler. When they checked their phones, they found voicemails and texts from the kid, warning them not to go to the house. He'd gotten there first, but had seen the man too, and barely escaped. Nobody had any idea who the man was or why he was there. Number 3. A few years ago, 2 cousins decided to roam the streets during Halloween night, looking for leftover candy. At the age of 12, they had no idea what monsters were walking around them. As the night went on, they didn't care about anything. They just wanted to get as much candy as possible. But as they walked down a street with one streetlight, they realized someone was following them. It wasn't just some kid in a costume, but a full-grown man walking right up to them. He wore a mask, and his dark, hollow eyes stared back at the kids. The man stopped the second they did. He then walked up to them slowly. The cousins didn't know whether to run or scream, so the only thing they did was stay quiet. The stranger introduced himself as a police officer. He pointed to a house down the street. Everything felt off. His tone, his voice, and even his body movement. The officer looked around before speaking. He told them an old man had been trying to lure kids inside all night in that house. He wanted them to get the old man to open the door so he could catch him in the act. The cousins just stared, chilled to the bones. They knew they could never accept that strange request. They wanted to run away, but their bodies felt too numb. Just then, the stranger reached out and grabbed hold of one of them. Everything felt too real now, but luck was on their side that day. A group of teenagers were coming down the street. The stranger knew he would be caught in seconds if he didn't hide right now. The officer walked away before the teenagers came close. Once again, going back to the shadows he came from. The memory of his cold stare still haunts them to this day. Number 4. This story will make you afraid of closing your eyes at night. It all started when Ryan and his friend came back from trick-and-treating all day. Halloween night had been perfect so far. They had gotten so much candy, and Ryan's friend was about to be picked up by his mom any minute. But then, things changed. There was a knock at the door. It was too late for someone to be asking for candies now. So who could it be? Both of them got up and reached the door, but the sight in front of them left them scared. A tall hooded man stood on their porch. He wasn't wearing a costume or even a mask, just a hoodie that hid his face. He stared down at the ground. After a few seconds passed, he knocked again, the sound traveling everywhere in the house. The friends felt paralyzed. They couldn't open the door. When Ryan's parents finally came to check, the man was already gone. Both of them walked back to Ryan's room, but someone was already waiting for them outside the window. It was the same exact man in their backyard, standing motionless, waiting for them to come out. Their blood ran cold. Ryan ran out of his room and got his parents, but by the time they came, the man was gone once again. The terrified boy spent the whole night staring out the window, afraid to close his eyes. He never saw the guy again, but every Halloween, he can't help but look for him in the shadows. Well, that's it from my side today, folks. Do comment down and let me know what you people think. Which story will be haunting your dreams tonight? The Scream Mask Man hiding under the stairway, or something else entirely? Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to learn about more eerie encounters. Plus, comment down below which horror story we should cover next.